Welcome to the new episode of today.
Il microbiota è composto da trilioni di microrganismi che vivono principalmente nell'intestino. Quindi anche se non hai nessuno, non sentirti mai solo.
We will explain a bit scientifically what happened in Roccaraso, because we want to talk as well about this phenomenon where apparently thousands and thousands of people came to Roccaraso for skiing, let's say influenced by some influencer that they were promoting this day on the snow. And really, thousands and thousands overcrowded this small town in Abruzzo for skiing. This is a phenomenon that in biology we can explain with quorum sensing. Today with us we have Simon, that is ending his PhD in microbiology, and we want to ask Simon, what is the quorum sensing phenomenon?
So, quorum sensing is basically a way for bacteria to communicate. Just imagine each bacterium releasing chemical signals into its environment. When the bacterial population is low, these signals are too diluted to trigger a response. But when the bacterial population increases, also these signals the concentration of these signals can also increase, and when it reaches a certain threshold, the bacteria basically realize that they are how can I say that they are numerous enough to take action together. So this action can be, by example, biofilm formation. So this is a protective bacterial structure. You can also have bioluminescence, like
in fact, with the bioluminescence is one of the first phenomenon of the quorum sensing. There is a particular species of this Hawaiian squid that has a bacterium inside that they call this a species of alivibrio.
Yes.
That once they reach a certain amounts,
yes,
the signal will trigger, and they are mainly encoded for luciferase, and so the bioluminescence will start. So this is a very, very interesting phenomenon in biology of the quorum sensing that, as you said, mainly once there is enough concentration of bacteria, they feel this concentration and they will start emitting this signal. More or less what we saw in Roccaraso, where, I mean, they were, once they reach a certain amount of followers, this influencer, they said, let's go to Roccaraso, and they all went. Was really something exceptional for this small town that obliged the mayor of the town to put restriction on the amount of people that can be there. So that's why I wanted to use this nowadays story to explain the quorum sensing. But at the same time, tell us a bit more on which is your PhD topic and why you think the quorum sensing is making also a bit your life harder on your PhD research.
Yes, so the aim of my PhD is to stabilize in vitro the gut microbiota. So for me, quorum sensing is crucial because it explains how the bacteria cooperate with each other, but also with the host and the environment. So in order to maintain a stable microbiota, I need to understand how the signals or the molecules of the quorum sensing act.
Okay, so let's explain also a bit more in depth what is your PhD project, as I am one of the responsible for this project. So the aim is exactly this, to stabilize the in vitro microbiome community. Because obviously the potential of this model will be huge, because first of all, by stabilizing the model for several days, we can start studying the interactions between microbes, but also between drugs or food and the microbial community. So more stable will be, better is to study the interaction of a single compound on a community. The problem is exactly that is a community, so it's not only to maintain the same amount of different bacteria or other microorganisms in the population, but it's also to maintain the communication stable with them, because one trigger and all the community will change.
Yes, indeed, you're totally right. So what I need to do, as you said, is to stabilize the microbiota. Right now, I succeeded. I mean, after 1 day of fermentation in vitro, I obtained a stabilized community inside of my fermenter. So my fermenter is the in vitro model that I'm using. And from now, I can start experiments by putting some molecules of interest, like you said. It could be nutrients or medicines.
So Simon, and do you have any examples of quorum sensing applied to the microbiome?
Yes, so quorum sensing is very important in the microbiota because gut bacteria use it to interact between each other, but also with the host. So yeah, I have some examples for you. They can prevent infections. By example, lactobacillus, which is a probiotic, yes, can suppress the quorum sensing of pathogenic bacteria, and like this, they suppress their virulence without directly killing them. Another example is the interaction with the immune system. So some commensal bacteria like Bacteroides theta iota omicron, if I am right, can modulate the host's immune response by regulating the mucus production in the gut. And my last example is the competition between bacteria. So Escherichia coli and Salmonella use quorum sensing to suppress the growth of other bacteria, and like this they ensure their dominance in the gut. So quorum sensing isn't just a thing that bacteria do in isolation, but it is a key mechanism that regulates all the gut microbiota.
So Simon, and which are the main challenges that you are facing now that you are trying to establish this model of fermentation?
Yes, so as you know, the gut microbiota almost contains only. I redo, okay?
Sì, già solo la risposta.
So as you know, the gut microbiota almost contains only anaerobic bacteria. So I need to ensure that my fermenter is free of oxygen. So for this, I need to put nitrogen inside, and this is quite a challenge because it's not easy to remove the oxygen that you have in the air.
Okay.
Yes, another issue that I have, it's not really an issue, it's a challenge, is that I need to do a lot of replicates of this fermentation to ensure that my results are accurate and precise.
Yeah, because maybe the ideal will be to recreate also a sort of gradient of oxygen and pH in order to simultaneously have aerobic and anaerobic bacteria.
Yes.
So those are the challenge. Beside the fact that, in theory, obviously, longer we keep them alive, and with that percentage, more likely will be to do also a long study on these things. But so far, this is also another challenge to keep the same community longer than 3 days.
Yes, yes. As I told you before, after 24 hours of fermentation, I obtain a stable microbiota, a stable community inside the fermenter. And it remains like this for at least 3 days. I don't know after this. I don't have any idea yet, but it could be great if I can go further, maybe to study how medicine could work for long-term studies. And one thing that I do to keep this community stable is to add some mucin inside the fermenter, and I do it after 24 hours of fermentation because the mucin is a molecule very important in the gut microbiota.
Yeah, it's one of the trick that we use also to see when and if to give some beneficial bacteria, but that they eat mucin. So of course it's a metabolite that the microbiome is used to grow.
Yes.
But at the same time is also crucial for the health of our gut, meaning that if you have a very thin layer of mucin, you will experience obviously issues. So if you give, for instance, as probiotics, things that are eating mucin in a patient that has already a very thin layer of mucin, you can induce also, unfortunately, a damage, even if you are giving something that is beneficial, like Akkermansia, for instance, is one of those. And I know that in your experiments, as soon as you give mucin, the Akkermansia will start obviously proliferating and stabilizing.
Yes, you're totally right. That's what I saw in my fermenter, actually. Akkermansia municiphala and also other bacteria like Veillonella species.
Okay, so Veillonella also is increasing with the mucin layer.
Yes, it is.
Simon, any other examples of quorum sensing in microbiology?
Yes, also I wanted to say that the bacteria can, so when it reaches the threshold, the pathogenic bacteria can also produce toxins, and that's how they become pathogenic actually.
Okay, when they reach a certain amount of concentration, they start releasing toxins that before they are not.
Yes.
So that's why also it's crucial to measure the balance of some potential pathogenic bacteria in the gut microbiome, because if there is a trend of growing and they overgrow, maybe they reach that particular concentration to really become pathogenic, so releasing toxins.
So it is normal to have pathogenic bacteria inside your gut as it is low. But when it's become too much, then it's not good for your health.
Yeah. So Simon, as you are studying it, please tell us very briefly what is the quorum sensing?
So the quorum sensing basically is a way for bacteria to communicate. Just imagine each bacterium releasing chemical signals into their environment, just like little biochemical messages. When the bacterial population is low, those signals are too diluted to trigger a response. But when the bacterial population is higher, then those signals are enough to create a response. And indeed, when it reaches a certain threshold, critical threshold, the bacteria just realize that they are numerous enough to take action together. So 3 examples of these actions can be the formation of a biofilm, the production of toxins, and the bioluminescence.
Okay. And then another example could be, obviously, as you said, the biofilm formation. In particular, the Pseudomonas aeruginosa is one of the bacteria producing biofilm that, as we know, this is also one of the pathogenic characteristics of these bacteria. So once they reach a particular concentration in an environment, they start to produce mainly polysaccharides that will create this shield, no? And that's why the biofilm is also an issue, because the treatment of a bacteria included in the biofilm will be more complex, because the pharmaceutical treatment, like an antibiotic, needs to reach the inside of a biofilm, and so that's why it's considered as a pathogenic trigger for
Indeed.
a particular community.
Indeed.
And as you have may noticed, today we are not alone in our podcast, and we are with Roberto Spinucci, that sponsored the podcast of today about biofilm in microbiology. Sorry, not biofilm, but quorum sensing in microbiology, and quorum sensing in the event of Roccaraso tourist concentration of the coming the previous weekend. As you have noticed, today there were not only me and Simon, because the podcast of today has been sponsored by Roberto Spinucci, professional hairdresser that is working here in Siena and Florence, but for special guests he's also available to do the treatment at home. So the podcast of today was about quorum sensing mechanism in microbiology and also in social life, where we create this parallelism between the communication that is happening in a bacterial environment, but also in our society. Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Roberto, for having me with me today.
Thank you.